The diamond necklace was found beneath Lydia Harrow's mattress, while the entire household watched. It lay inside a square of black velvet, 37 white stones glittering in the morning light, each one worth more than Lydia had earned in all the years of her life. Lady Blackmere gave a little cry and pressed both hands to her throat, as though the necklace had been torn from her flesh rather than discovered in a servant's room. The housekeeper turned pale. 2 footmen stared at the floor, and in the doorway, framed by the cold gray corridor, the Duke of Ravenscourt said nothing at all. Lydia stood beside the narrow bed with her hands folded before her. She did not scream. She did not beg. She simply looked at the jewels, then at the open drawer where someone had carefully disturbed her few possessions without scattering them. A thief in haste would have overturned the room. A liar with time would make the discovery look respectable. Lydia noticed that. Lydia noticed everything. "Well," Lady Blackmere said softly, and the satisfaction beneath her sorrow was almost invisible. "There can be no misunderstanding now." Lydia looked at her. "There has been nothing but misunderstanding since you arrived." A sharp breath moved through the servants. Lady Blackmere's pale face tightened. She was beautiful in the polished, expensive way of women who had never been required to carry anything heavier than resentment. Her dark red morning gown fell perfectly over her narrow frame. Pearls gleamed at her ears. Only the bare space at her throat suggested anything was missing. "You dare speak to me so?" she asked. "I am speaking to the person accusing me." "The necklace was found in your bedchamber." "Placed in my bedchamber." "By whom?" "That is the question no one appears interested in asking." The housekeeper shifted uneasily. Lady Blackmere turned toward the Duke. "Alistair, surely you will not allow this creature to insult me after stealing from your own family." The Duke of Ravenscourt remained still. He was 33, tall, dark-haired, and dressed in a black riding coat that still carried a faint shine of rain across the shoulders. Society called him cold because he rarely spoke without purpose and never smiled merely because a room expected it. Lydia had never found him cold. Coldness did not notice when an elderly gardener's hand shook and quietly ordered lighter tools. Coldness did not remember the kitchen maid's sick child or send medicine without attaching his name. Coldness did not stop in a corridor at midnight to place another log on the fire beside a sleeping servant. The Duke was not cold. He was careful. And now his careful gray eyes moved from the necklace to the drawer, to the mattress, to Lydia's face. "Who searched this room?" he asked. Lady Blackmere blinked. "What? Who searched it?" "Mrs. Wren and 2 footmen. I was present." "At your insistence," said the housekeeper. Lady Blackmere's gaze snapped toward her. Mrs. Wren lowered her eyes, but the words remained in the room. The Duke stepped inside. Lydia moved aside as he examined the black velvet. He did not touch it immediately. He looked instead at the dust beneath the bed, the folded blankets, the placement of the drawer, and the small table near the window where Lydia kept a chipped blue cup filled with dried lavender. Then he removed one glove and lifted the necklace by its clasp. "The lock is broken," he said. Lady Blackmere touched her throat. "It was torn away during the theft. You told us last night that you removed it before dinner and placed it inside your jewel case." "Yes." "Then how was it torn?" Silence. Lady Blackmere recovered quickly. "Perhaps the thief broke it trying to open the clasp." "Why would a thief need to open a necklace already removed?" "I cannot account for criminal behavior." "No," the Duke said. "Perhaps not." Lydia felt every eye move between them. Lady Blackmere gave a brittle laugh. Surely we are not going to debate the habits of thieves when the necklace has been found under her mattress. Under, the Duke repeated. Not inside the mattress. Not hidden in the chimney. Not carried away. Placed where the first search would find it. Lady Blackmere's color deepened. You cannot seriously be defending her. I am asking questions. Because she has deceived you. Lydia looked down. There it was. Not theft, not evidence, jealousy. The necklace was only the weapon. The real accusation had begun weeks before Lady Blackmere's arrival, in glances across the library, in conversations interrupted when Lydia entered, in the Duke asking Lydia's opinion when women of rank were present. Miss Harrow, the Duke said. Lydia raised her eyes. Did you take this necklace? No, Your Grace. Did you enter Lady Blackmere's chambers yesterday? Yes. A murmur passed through the corridor. Lady Blackmere smiled. There. The Duke did not look away from Lydia. Why? Her maid asked me to mend the clasp on a blue silk gown before dinner. You touched the jewel case? No. Did you see the necklace? Yes. It was lying on the dressing table beside the open case. Lady Blackmere's maid, a thin young woman named Celia, stood at the back of the servants. She seemed suddenly interested in the wall. The Duke noticed. Celia, he said. The maid flinched. Your Grace? Did you ask Miss Harrow to enter your mistress's room? Yes, Your Grace. Was the necklace on the dressing table? Celia's lips parted. Lady Blackmere looked at her. It was only a look. A gentle turn of the head. A slight narrowing of the eyes. Yet Celia's face drained of color. I do not remember, she whispered. Lydia watched the Duke watch her. You remembered enough to direct the search here, he said. Celia began to tremble. Lady Blackmere stepped forward. This is outrageous. The jewels belong to your late mother. They have been in the Ravenscourt family for generations, and they were discovered in the room of a penniless companion who had both access and motive. Motive? Lydia asked. Lady Blackmere turned on her. Money, resentment, ambition. Choose one. Lydia's face remained calm, but her heart struck hard against her ribs. She had spent 6 years learning to stand still while others defined her. Penniless, dependent, useful, nearly respectable, never equal. Lady Blackmere knew exactly where to place the knife. I choose none, Lydia said. Then you are a liar as well as a thief. The Duke's expression changed, only slightly. His mother had once said that when Alistair Ravenscourt became angry, his face grew quieter, not louder. Lydia had remembered. Enough, he said. Lady Blackmere stared at him. Alistair? No one leaves the estate. His voice carried into the corridor. The gates are to be closed. Every carriage, trunk, room, and account will be examined. Mrs. Wren, Miss Harrow is not to be confined. You cannot mean to let her walk freely through the house, Lady Blackmere said. If she intended to escape, she had the entire night. She was waiting for the search to end, Lady Blackmere insisted. Then she is an unusually patient thief. He placed the necklace back on the velvet. The magistrate will not be summoned yet. Why not? Because I do not send innocent people to prison to satisfy a room. Lady Blackmere's eyes flashed. And if she is guilty? The Duke looked at Lydia. Then the truth will bear examination. He left the room carrying the necklace. No one moved until his footsteps had faded. Then Lady Blackmere came close enough that only Lydia could hear. "He may ask questions today," she whispered, "but men like him always choose their name in the end." Lydia met her gaze. "Then you should be very afraid of what his name requires him to discover." Lady Blackmere smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You have mistaken his curiosity for devotion." She swept from the room. Celia followed with her head down. The servants dispersed slowly, carrying the scandal with them. Mrs. Wren remained. She was a broad, gray-haired woman who had managed Ravenscourt House for nearly 40 years and possessed the rare talent of looking both kind and severe at once. She shut the door and turned to Lydia. "Did you truly enter Lady Blackmere's room?" "Yes. Alone. For several minutes." Mrs. Wren sighed. "That was foolish. Mending a sleeve? Being useful in a house where usefulness is often mistaken for availability." Lydia sat on the edge of the bed. Her legs had begun to tremble now that no audience remained. Mrs. Wren saw and pretended not to. Kind people often understood that dignity needed privacy more than sympathy. "You believe me?" Lydia asked. "I have known thieves." The housekeeper picked up the blue cup and set it upright. "They do not spend 6 years returning extra coins when the butcher miscounts." The Duke may not agree. "His Grace has spent 6 years finding reasons to enter the library whenever you are there." Lydia looked up sharply. Mrs. Wren continued rearranging the lavender as if she had commented on the weather. "That proves nothing." "Of course not. He is kind to everyone." "No, my dear. He is fair to everyone. Kindness is rarer." Lydia stared at the floor. She had come to Ravenscourt at 20. After her father's death left nothing but debts, unanswered letters, and one locked wooden box he had forbidden her to open until she was safe. Safety proved a complicated thing. Her mother had died when Lydia was 11. Her father, once a respected clerk to a noble household, had fallen into disgrace under circumstances he never explained. No family received Lydia after his death. No relation answered. It was the Dowager Duchess of Ravenscourt, Alistair's grandmother, who offered her a place as companion after reading one of Lydia's desperate letters. The old Duchess had died 2 years later, but Lydia remained because the Duke insisted the household still required a librarian and correspondence secretary. Society called the arrangement improper only when it remembered Lydia existed. Most days it did not. Until Lady Blackmere came. Cassandra Blackmere had been invited for Christmas with her widowed mother and younger brother. Within a week, the county had decided she would become the next Duchess of Ravenscourt. She was beautiful, wealthy, titled, and perfectly prepared to occupy every room as though it had waited for her. Lydia had never competed. Competition requires hope. But Lady Blackmere noticed the Duke asking Lydia to translate an old French letter. She noticed him bringing Lydia a book from London because she had once mentioned it. She noticed that he listened when Lydia spoke. Some women feared beauty. Others feared intelligence. Lady Blackmere feared being compared to anyone she could not dismiss. "What happens now?" Lydia asked. Mrs. Wren folded her hands. "Now His Grace turns the house inside out. And when he finds nothing, he will find something." "You sound certain." "The Duke resembles his mother in one important respect. Once he believes a thing has been hidden from him, he becomes unbearable." Lydia smiled, despite herself. Mrs. Wren's expression softened. "There, keep that. Fear makes poor company." She went to the door, then paused. "One more thing. The velvet beneath the necklace was not from Lady Blackmere's jewel case." Lydia looked at her. How do you know? Her case is lined in blue. The door closed behind her. Lydia sat very still. Then she rose and examined the black velvet left beneath the mattress. The Duke had carried the necklace, but not the cloth. She lifted it carefully. Along one edge was a line of gold dust, fine as pollen. Not ordinary dust. Powdered metal, perhaps from a jeweler's workbench or a gilded frame. She folded the cloth and slipped it into her pocket. If the Duke intended to investigate, she would not remain a silent object at the center of his inquiry. Her father had taught her that truth often survived because one overlooked person chose to notice it. He had also taught her that powerful people rarely feared lies. They feared records. Somewhere in Ravenscourt House, someone had moved a necklace, broken its clasp, lined it in unfamiliar velvet, and placed it beneath Lydia's bed. That required access, knowledge, time, and confidence that Lady Blackmere's accusation would be believed. Lydia went first to the library. The Duke stood behind the great walnut desk with 3 account books open before him. Rain streaked the tall windows. The necklace lay inside a locked glass box near his hand. He looked up when she entered. "Mrs. Wren said you were not to be confined," Lydia said. She obeyed. "Did you expect otherwise?" "I have learned not to confuse obedience with agreement." "Then we have learned the same lesson." His gaze dropped to her clenched hand. "What have you found?" Lydia placed the black velvet on the desk. "Lady Blackmere's jewel case is lined with blue silk." He touched the gold dust along the edge. "Where was this?" "Wrapped around the necklace." "Why did no one mention it?" "They were looking at the jewels." "And you were looking at what carried them." "I was looking at what did not belong." He studied her for a long moment. "Sit." Lydia sat opposite him. "The dust may be from gold leaf," he said. "There are several gilded rooms in the house, but only one room currently being restored. The West Gallery. The workmen left 3 days ago because of the weather. And their tools remain locked inside." The Duke leaned back. "You have thought about this. Someone else has thought about it longer. You are not frightened enough." "I am terrified." He seemed surprised by the honesty. "You do not appear so." "Appearance has been required of me more often than truth." Something in his face tightened. "You should never have been searched before I arrived." "Would your presence have changed where the necklace was found?" "No. It would have changed how you were treated." Lydia looked toward the windows. Rainwater traced silver paths down the glass. "Lady Blackmere said you will choose your family name in the end." "My family name has survived duels, scandals, debts, one attempted poisoning, and a great-uncle who believed himself to be the Emperor of Rome. It can survive questions. And if the answer harms it, then it deserves harm." She looked back at him. There was no performance in his expression, no heroic brightness, only certainty. That was more dangerous to hope than tenderness. "Why do you believe me?" she asked. "I have not said I do." Lydia's chest cooled. He watched the reaction and continued. "Belief is not useful. Evidence is." "That sounds very fair." "You dislike fairness?" "I dislike the way powerful men use it, when kindness would require risk." Silence. She regretted the words at once, not because they were false, but because they were too true. The Duke folded his hands. "Then let me be precise. I do not believe you took the necklace because the evidence was designed to be found, because Lady Blackmere's account contradicts the broken clasp, because her maid is frightened of her, and because you've had access to objects far more valuable for 6 years and never once given me reason to question you." Lydia breathed carefully. "That is still evidence." "No." His voice lowered. "This is belief." Their eyes held. The room seemed suddenly smaller, the rain quieter. Then the Duke looked away first and opened a ledger. "At midnight, someone used the inner stair beside the west gallery." "How do you know?" "The night porter heard the door. He assumed it was a servant." "Which servants possess keys?" "Mrs. Wren, the upper footman, my valet, Lady Blackmere's maid, and you." Lydia absorbed the list. "Celia has a key?" "Lady Blackmere requested one because the east corridor was cold. The west stair does not lead to her rooms." "No. It leads to the gallery, the chapel corridor, and the servants' wing, including your room." Lydia looked at the velvet. "Then the necklace may have passed through the gallery. Or someone wished us to think so." "You do not trust clues." "I trust patterns. Clues are often placed. So are necklaces." A faint, almost smile touched his mouth. "Precisely." He rang the bell. His valet entered. "Have the west gallery locked," the Duke said. "No one enters until I arrive. Send for Mr. Hale, the jeweler, and ask him to come discreetly. Also bring Lady Blackmere's jewel case." The valet bowed. Lydia rose. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To speak with Celia." "No. She may tell me what she will not tell you. She may also warn whoever instructed her. You think she is involved?" "I think fear makes servants useful to cruel employers." Lydia's hand moved to the pocket containing her father's small key, a habit she had when anxious. The Duke noticed. "What does that open?" he asked. "Nothing in this house. You carry it every day." "My father's box." "The one you have never opened." Lydia stared at him. "How do you know that?" "My grandmother told me." "She had no right." "She was concerned." Concern is often the polite cousin of interference. "You have sharpened your tongue since this morning. Being accused of theft has been unexpectedly liberating." This time he did smile, briefly and without defense. It changed his whole face. Lydia remembered Mrs. Wren's words and looked away. "Do not speak to Celia alone," he said. "That is an order?" "A request. Those are more difficult to refuse." "I know." She left the library carrying the strange warmth of his smile and the colder knowledge that someone in the house had planned her ruin carefully. The first answer came from the jeweler. Mr. Hale arrived before dinner, wet from the road and annoyed at secrecy until the Duke showed him the necklace. Then annoyance became alarm. He examined the clasp through a small brass lens. "This was cut," he said, "not broken." "With what?" the Duke asked. "Fine cutters, the kind used to remove wire links." Lydia stood near the shelves taking notes. Lady Blackmere sat beside the fire, pale and furious. Her mother whispered complaints about insult and impropriety. Celia stood behind them. "Could a servant obtain such a tool?" Lydia asked. Mr. Hale glanced at the Duke before answering her. "Anyone might. But this cut is clean, done by someone with experience." "A jeweler? Or a goldsmith? Perhaps a restorer?" The Duke placed the black velvet before him. Mr. Hale rubbed the dust between 2 fingers. "Gilding powder and pumice. From restoration work?" "Almost certainly." Lady Blackmere stood. "Then one of the gallery workmen stole it and planted it in her room." "The gallery was locked after the men left," said the Duke. "They returned their keys." Keys can be copied. By whom? How should I know? You are eager to assign guilt beyond the evidence. And you are eager to deny what was found beneath that woman's bed. Lydia looked at Celia. The maid's eyes were fixed on the velvet, not the necklace. The cloth. She recognized it. Lydia was certain. Celia, she said. The maid looked up. Lady Blackmere's head turned. Have you seen this velvet before? Celia's mouth opened. No. You did not look at the necklace when Mr. Hale examined it. You looked at the cloth. Because you accused me with your eyes. Lady Blackmere stepped between them. My maid will not be interrogated by a thief. Miss Harrow has not been charged, the Duke said. Not yet. Cassandra. His use of her first name was not intimate. It was a warning. Lady Blackmere heard it and sat. Lydia approached Celia slowly. Someone has frightened you, she said. I understand what fear can make a person do. You understand nothing. Then help me. Celia's eyes filled with tears. Lady Blackmere's fingers tightened against her skirt. I did not take the necklace, the maid whispered. I did not ask whether you did. Lydia placed the velvet on the table. Where have you seen this? Celia looked toward her mistress. That was enough. Lady Blackmere rose again. We are leaving. The gates remain closed, said the Duke. You cannot imprison guests. No, but I can detain witnesses to the suspected theft of family property. Lady Blackmere's mother gasped. This is monstrous. So is planting evidence in a woman's bedchamber. The Duke's voice cut cleanly through the room. Lady Blackmere stared at him. For one moment her beauty slipped. Not physically, but morally, as though something hard beneath the polished surface had shown through. You have already chosen her, she said. This is not about choice. Everything is, she swept out. Celia followed, but Lydia saw the maid slip something from her cuff beneath a silver tray near the door. After they were gone, Lydia crossed the room and lifted the tray. A small, folded scrap lay beneath it. 3 words were written inside. Midnight. Old Chapel. The Duke read over her shoulder. You will not go. She will not speak if she sees you. She may not be the one waiting. Then you should be nearby. Nearby is not the same as allowing you to enter a trap. I am already inside one. He looked at her with open frustration. You think courage means walking toward every danger. No. I think power means having other people walk toward it for you. The words struck him. Lydia regretted them again. She seemed incapable of speaking carefully near him now. He folded the note. You are right. She blinked. I beg your pardon? I have spent the day ordering others to search, question, and watch while you bear the accusation. That ends tonight. What are you proposing? We both go. At midnight, the old chapel stood dark at the edge of the estate, abandoned since the roof had partially collapsed during a storm 12 years earlier. Ivy covered the eastern wall. Moonlight entered through broken glass and lay across the floor like water. Lydia wore a dark cloak. The Duke walked several paces behind her, silent enough that she occasionally had to glance back to be certain he remained. You do realize, she whispered, that your height makes concealment difficult. I have encountered this problem before. During many secret midnight meetings? Only the disappointing ones. She almost smiled. Then movement sounded near the ruined altar. Celia emerged from behind a pillar. She wore no cloak, only her thin servant's dress. and she shivered violently. "You came," she whispered. "Of course," Lydia said. Celia saw the Duke and stepped back. "No, I said alone." "You said midnight and Old Chapel. He cannot know. He already knows you are afraid." The Duke remained near the door. "I will not approach," he said. Celia looked at Lydia. "She will ruin me." "Lady Blackmere?" Celia nodded. "She said if I told anyone, my brother would lose his apprenticeship. She knows the master. She said she would tell him Samuel stole money." "Did he?" "No." "Then why would the master believe her?" Celia gave Lydia a broken look. They both knew the answer. Rank did not need evidence when accusing the poor. "Tell us what happened," Lydia said. Celia wrapped her arms around herself. "Her ladyship gave me the black velvet 2 days ago. She said it came from a box in the West Gallery and told me to keep it. Last night she gave me the necklace after dinner." "Already cut?" the Duke asked. Celia nodded. "She told me to wrap it, take the inner stair, and put it beneath Miss Harrow's mattress." Lydia felt the cold chapel tilt around her. Even knowing she had been framed did not soften the hearing of it. "Why?" "She said Miss Harrow had been stealing from the family for months, and that His Grace refused to see it. She said we needed proof." "Did you believe her?" Lydia asked. Celia began to cry. "I wanted to. It was easier. And now? Now I know she chose the room before the necklace ever went missing." The Duke stepped closer despite his promise. "Will you repeat this before witnesses?" Celia recoiled. "No. Without testimony, she may deny everything. She will destroy Samuel. I can protect your brother. Can you protect him forever? From every whisper? Every employer?" The Duke stopped. Lydia understood Celia's terror. A promise from a duke was powerful. So was a lie from a countess. "Was anyone else involved?" Lydia asked. Celia hesitated. "A man came to her rooms twice." "Who?" "I never saw his face. He used the west stair. He wore a brown coat and smelled of cloves." The Duke and Lydia exchanged a glance. "A workman?" he asked. "No, a gentleman. His hands were clean. He gave her papers." "What papers?" "I do not know. But after reading them, she said the necklace was not enough. She said Miss Harrow had to be removed before the box was opened." Lydia went still. "What box?" Celia shook her head. She did not say. The key in Lydia's pocket suddenly felt heavy. Her father's box. Her father had worked as clerk to a noble household before his disgrace. He had refused to name the family. The Dowager Duchess had known of the box. Lady Blackmere's unknown visitor feared it. A pattern began forming, terrible and incomplete. "Did the man mention my father?" Lydia asked. Celia's face answered before her voice. "He said Harrow should have burned with the records." A sound came from outside. Branches breaking. The Duke turned. A shadow moved past the broken window. "Stay here," he said. He ran through the side door. Lydia moved after him, but Celia grabbed her sleeve. "There is more. Tell me." "The man had a ring, red stone, carved with a bird." Lydia knew that ring. She had seen its impression in wax on the letters that ruined her father. A falcon with spread wings, the seal of Lord Carroway, former Chancellor to the Duke's father and Lady Blackmere's maternal uncle. Lord Carroway had died 5 years ago, or so society believed. The Duke returned moments later, breathing hard. Whoever it was had a horse beyond the trees. He saw Lydia's expression. What? The visitor wore Caraway's seal. Impossible. Why? He is dead. My father was called a thief because of documents bearing that seal. The Duke stared at her. You never told me. You never asked what destroyed him. I thought it was gambling debt. That is what the newspapers printed. Lydia pulled the key from her pocket. My father was chief clerk to Lord Caraway. He discovered money disappearing from estates placed under Caraway's guardianship. Widows, orphans, girls whose inheritances were controlled until marriage. When he confronted him, records vanished, and my father was accused of forging accounts. The Duke's face hardened. My mother's estate was managed by Caraway before her marriage, and the diamonds belonged to her. You think the necklace is connected? I think Lady Blackmere wanted me removed before I opened my father's box. Where is it? Hidden beneath the floor of my room. They returned to the house before dawn. Mrs. Wren met them at the servants' entrance, wearing a robe over her nightdress, and the expression of a woman who had expected foolishness, but not quite so much of it. If either of you has died, she said, I will be extremely annoyed. We are alive, the Duke replied. Temporarily, perhaps. She took one look at Celia, and her anger softened. Kitchen, she ordered. Tea first. Confessions after. Lydia and the Duke went upstairs alone. In her room, Lydia knelt beside the window and lifted a loose floorboard. Beneath it lay the wooden box wrapped in oilcloth. She had carried it through 6 houses and 3 counties without opening it. Her father's final instruction had been written on the lid. Open only when you stand in a house where truth is valued more than reputation. Lydia had always thought no such house existed. She placed the box on the table. The Duke stood opposite her. You do not have to open it tonight, he said. If I wait, fear will grow clever. She inserted the key. The lock resisted, then turned with a small metallic sigh. Inside lay bundles of documents tied in faded ribbon, a silver pocket watch, 3 sealed letters, and a miniature portrait of Lydia's mother as a young woman. Beneath them was a ledger. Lydia opened it. Columns of names, estates, payments, and withdrawals filled the pages. Some entries were marked with Caraway's falcon. Others carried the initials of trustees and solicitors. One name appeared repeatedly. Ravenscourt. The Duke came beside her. These are my mother's accounts. Before your parents married, money was removed every quarter, transferred to a private holding company. Lydia turned the page. Blackmere Consolidated. The Duke's face went still. Lady Blackmere's family had built much of its modern wealth through mining, shipping, and advantageous marriages. Perhaps not all of it had been earned. Look here, Lydia said. A notation beside the diamond necklace described it as collateral against missing trust funds. Caraway had apparently borrowed the jewels from the Ravenscourt collection, replaced them with paste stones for several years, and used the originals to secure secret loans. The real diamonds were eventually returned, but the theft had been discovered by Lydia's father. The necklace was proof, the Duke said, not merely jewelry. My father copied the serial markings from the original setting. If the current stones match these records, Caraway's fraud becomes demonstrable. Lydia searched deeper. A letter addressed to the late Duke of Ravenscourt explained everything. Her father had attempted to warn him. The letter had never been delivered. Another envelope bore the name of the Dowager Duchess. It had been opened. Inside, in the old Duchess's hand, was a note to Lydia's father. I believe you. I cannot yet prove it. Keep the records hidden. If anything happens to you, send the girl to me. Lydia sat down slowly. The old Duchess had not answered a stranger's desperate letter by chance. She had been waiting. She knew, Lydia whispered. My grandmother protected you, the Duke said. Not enough. Perhaps as much as she could. That is what people say when powerful protection fails. You are right. She looked at him. He did not defend his family. He did not soften the failure. Why did she never tell me? Lydia asked. Because Caraway was believed dead, and perhaps she thought silence kept you safe. Silence kept me poor, dependent, and accused. The Duke looked at the documents. Then we end it. A floorboard creaked in the corridor. He reached the door just as the handle moved. When he opened it, no one stood outside. But at the far end of the passage, a dark figure vanished around the corner. They ran after it. The figure descended the back stairs and crossed the lower hall. The Duke gained ground. Lydia followed as quickly as her skirts allowed. Near the conservatory, the intruder threw open a window and escaped into the rain. The Duke climbed through after him. Lydia reached the window in time to see two shapes struggle near the hedge. One broke free and disappeared toward the stables. The Duke returned holding a torn strip of brown wool. Clove scent lingered in the wet air. He came for the box, Lydia said, and now he knows it is open. By breakfast, the estate gates remained shut. Every horse was counted, and every guest assembled in the drawing room under the pretense of concern. Lady Blackmere appeared composed in dark green silk. Celia did not stand behind her. She sat in the housekeeper's room under Mrs. Wren's protection. Lady Blackmere noticed at once. Where is my maid? Resting, the Duke said. Without my permission? She does not require your permission to recover from fear. Lady Blackmere's eyes moved to Lydia. So she has been speaking. Not enough, said Lydia. Lady Blackmere smiled. You look disappointed. The Duke placed the diamond necklace on the table. Beside it, he laid the old ledger. Lady Blackmere's mother went pale. Her younger brother looked confused. Do you recognize this? The Duke asked Lady Blackmere. A book. Your family's company appears throughout it. My family conducts business. It conducted theft. Her smile vanished. Be careful. That advice would have served you yesterday. He opened the ledger to the necklace record. These diamonds were used as collateral in a fraudulent loan arranged by your uncle. Lady Blackmere laughed too loudly. My uncle died years ago. Did he? Lydia asked. The room quieted. A witness saw a man wearing his seal inside this house. Then the witness lied. The man entered your room. Another lie. He gave you documents. You have become imaginative since stealing jewels. The Duke's hand struck the table, not hard but enough to silence everyone. You will not call her a thief again. Lady Blackmere stared at him. You are making a spectacle of yourself for a servant. Miss Harrow is not a servant. What is she then? The question hung in the room. Lydia looked at the Duke. He did not answer immediately. Lady Blackmere saw that pause and smiled with renewed cruelty. Exactly. Lydia rose. What I am does not change what you did. And what did I do? You instructed Celia to place the necklace beneath my mattress. Lady Blackmere's mother gasped. Cassandra? The maid is frightened and confused. She described the velvet, the cut clasp, and your unknown visitor. Lady Blackmere's gaze sharpened. Unknown to her, perhaps. Lord Carroway, Lydia said. For the first time, Lady Blackmere truly lost control. Her face emptied. Her fingers gripped the chair. It lasted 1 second. It was enough. "He is dead," she whispered. "You sound uncertain." "Because this accusation is grotesque." The Duke watched her closely. "Where is he?" "In his grave." "Then you will not object to opening it?" Lady Blackmere's mother cried out. "You cannot. I have already sent men." Lady Blackmere stood. "This is madness." "Perhaps. But if the coffin is empty, madness will have company." She turned toward the door. 2 footmen blocked it. "You said we were not prisoners." "You are witnesses," said the Duke, "and one of you is protecting a criminal." Lady Blackmere faced Lydia. "You think this ends with you restored and beloved? Society will never forget what you are." "Neither will I," Lydia said. "I am the daughter of a man you helped destroy. I am the woman you tried to send to prison, and I am still standing." Lady Blackmere's lips curved. For now. That afternoon, the Duke's men returned from the Carroway mausoleum. The coffin contained stones. By evening, the magistrate arrived. Lady Blackmere denied everything. Celia repeated her statement, but broke down under questioning, terrified for her brother. The evidence pointed toward conspiracy, but did not yet prove Lady Blackmere had personally taken the necklace. Lord Carroway remained hidden, and then Lydia disappeared. Mrs. Wren found her room empty after supper. The window stood open. Mud marked the sill. The wooden box was gone, though Lydia had hidden the original ledger elsewhere. On the dressing table lay a single red feather stamped into sealing wax. Carroway's falcon. The Duke read the message beneath it. "Bring the ledger to the West Gallery before midnight. Come alone or the girl follows her father." Mrs. Wren watched his face turn quiet. "You cannot go alone," she said. "I can. That is not the same as should. He has Lydia, and wishes to use your fear." The Duke folded the note. "Then he has chosen correctly." Mrs. Wren caught his arm. She had served him since infancy, and was perhaps the only person alive who would dare. "Do not confuse love with surrender." He looked at her. The word passed between them. Love. It had existed unspoken so long that hearing it did not create the truth. It merely removed the last place he could hide from it. "I am not surrendering," he said. "I am ending this." Lydia woke inside the West Gallery, with her wrists tied behind a carved chair. Lamps burned beneath half-covered portraits. Restoration scaffolding rose along the walls. The room smelled of dust, oil, gold leaf, and cloves. Lord Carroway stood near the long windows. He was older than the miniature newspaper portraits Lydia remembered, thinner and bent at one shoulder, but the falcon ring remained on his hand. "Your father had your same expression," he said, "as though moral disapproval were a weapon. It frightened you enough to fake your death." He smiled. "Death is an excellent retirement when one has enemies." Lady Blackmere stood near the fireplace wearing a traveling cloak. "You said she would be gone before anyone connected the accounts." "And she would have been, if you had planted the necklace properly." "I did." "You allowed a frightened maid to perform the work." "You assured me the Duke would believe the evidence." "I overestimated his loyalty to his class." Lydia looked between them. "You needed me convicted because the box could reopen the fraud." Carroway approached her. "The box should have been destroyed with your father." "Did you kill him?" "No. Men like your father rarely require murder. Shame is slower, but often more effective." Lydia's throat tightened. Her father had died in a rented room, still insisting he had done nothing wrong while creditors removed the furniture around him. Caraway had not needed a knife. "You stole from women who could not defend their own property," she said. "I moved idle wealth into useful hands. Yours. Power belongs to those capable of using it. Then why are you hiding in an unfinished gallery?" His smile disappeared. Lady Blackmere stepped closer. "You always did speak above your position. And you always feared that position might change." Lady Blackmere slapped her. The sound cracked across the room. Lydia's cheek burned. She turned her face back slowly. "That will not make him love you." Lady Blackmere's eyes widened. Caraway laughed. "Enough! The Duke will arrive soon." "He will not bring the ledger," Lydia said. "He believes evidence matters more than me." The words hurt to speak because part of her still feared they were true. Caraway studied her. "You do not believe that." "I know him." "No, you know the version he performs for dependents. Men protect what reflects their own worth." "Then you should be afraid." "I reflect his judgment." Midnight approached. Footsteps sounded beyond the gallery doors. The Duke entered carrying the ledger. He wore no coat, no weapon visible, only a dark waistcoat and white shirt with the sleeves buttoned at the wrist. His eyes found Lydia first. The red mark on her face changed something in him. Lady Blackmere saw it and stepped back. "Release her," he said. Caraway extended his hand. "The ledger." "Release her. You are in no position to bargain." "Neither are you. The magistrate knows you live. Copies of the ledger are already on their way to London." Caraway's face tightened. "You are bluffing." "Then kill us and discover whether I am." Lydia understood. There might be no copies. He was gambling with certainty because powerful men trusted confidence more than truth. Caraway looked at Lady Blackmere. "Search him." She approached the Duke. Her hands trembled as she checked his pockets. "Nothing," she said. "The ledger," Caraway demanded. The Duke held it up. "Untie Lydia." Lady Blackmere moved behind the chair. Caraway stopped her. "Not yet. You said, 'I have altered the plan.'" Lady Blackmere stared at him. "We leave together." "No, you remain." Understanding arrived across her face. "You intend to blame me. You planted the necklace. You threatened the maid. You invited me into the house. The evidence already points toward you. You promised marriage." Caraway smiled with genuine amusement. "My dear child, I promised usefulness." Lydia watched Lady Blackmere's pride collapse into horror. The same cruelty she had used against others now turned upon her. "Give me the ledger," Caraway said. The Duke tossed it onto the long restoration table. Caraway moved toward it. At that moment, Lydia felt Lady Blackmere's hands at the ropes, not tightening, loosening. "Do not mistake this for kindness," she whispered. "I do not." The knot slipped. Lydia kept her hands behind her. Caraway opened the ledger and bent over the pages. The Duke's gaze moved once to Lydia. He saw the loosened rope. His expression did not change. "Where are the original trust deeds?" he asked. "Safe." "Without them, the ledger proves theft, but not ownership. It proves enough to embarrass several families into silence. You still believe shame is stronger than law." "It usually is." The Duke took one step toward him. Caraway drew a pistol. "No farther." Lady Blackmere inhaled sharply. Lydia freed one wrist. You should have killed Harrow, Caraway said. Mercy created inconvenience. You call ruining an innocent man mercy? The Duke asked. I allowed him to live. You allowed him to suffer. Suffering is common. Ruin is instructive. Lydia's hand closed around the loose rope. Beside her stood a small pot of restoration solvent. She shifted her foot toward it. The Duke saw. And the necklace? He asked, keeping Caraway's attention. A sentimental error. Your mother's guardian should never have documented the stones. My mother was 16, old enough to possess diamonds, too young to protect them. Lydia kicked the solvent. The jar struck the floor and shattered. Oil spread beneath the table. Lady Blackmere seized the nearest lamp and threw it toward the curtains, not the oil. Flame raced up the old velvet. Caraway turned in shock. The Duke lunged. The pistol fired. Glass exploded behind them. Lydia tore free and pulled Lady Blackmere away from the spreading fire. The Duke struck Caraway's wrist. The weapon fell. They struggled beside the scaffolding as burning fabric dropped from above. Caraway reached for the ledger. Lydia grabbed it first. He turned toward her with murder in his face. Your father should have taught you obedience. He taught me records survive men. She hurled the ledger through the open gallery door. Mrs. Wren caught it. Behind her stood the magistrate, 4 officers, Celia, and half the household. The Duke had not come alone. Caraway saw them and stopped fighting. The room filled with smoke, servants carrying water, officers shouting orders, guests stumbling from their chambers. Lady Blackmere stood beside Lydia, her traveling cloak singed, watching her uncle placed in irons. You brought witnesses, Lydia said to the Duke. You accused me of making others walk into danger. So you listened. I occasionally attempt it. The ceiling beam groaned. He caught Lydia around the waist and pulled her from beneath falling plaster. They reached the corridor as the servants contained the fire. Caraway was dragged away, shouting that every noble family in England had secrets, and none would permit a clerk's daughter to expose them. The Duke looked at Lydia. Then England may prepare to be disappointed. Dawn found Ravenscourt House blackened along one wing but standing. Lord Caraway confessed nothing, but the trust deeds were discovered inside a London vault under an assumed name. The documents proved decades of theft from vulnerable estates. Lady Blackmere's family wealth collapsed under lawsuits within months. Celia's brother kept his apprenticeship under the Duke's direct protection. Celia herself left service and became assistant to the solicitor appointed to restore the stolen trusts, having discovered that fear, once survived, sometimes became precision. Lady Blackmere admitted planting the necklace in exchange for leniency. She was not imprisoned, but society performed its own colder sentence. Invitations disappeared. Friends became strangers. Families who had praised her beauty suddenly remembered concerns about her character. Lydia felt no joy in it. Public opinion had failed her too easily to become satisfying merely because it changed direction. The formal clearing of her name occurred in the great ballroom before servants, tenants, magistrates, and every guest who had witnessed the search. The diamond necklace rested inside a glass case. The Duke stood beside it. Lydia wore a plain blue gown because she refused the expensive silk Mrs. Wren tried to force upon her. The jewels were placed in Miss Harrow's room as part of a conspiracy to discredit her and suppress evidence of financial crimes committed against multiple families, the magistrate announced. She is entirely innocent. The room turned toward Lydia. Some faces held shame, others curiosity, a few disappointment that the scandal had ended without blood. Lady Blackmere stood near the doors beside an officer, stripped of ornament and certainty. The Duke stepped forward. "Innocent is insufficient," he said. The magistrate looked surprised. "Your Grace?" Miss Harrow was searched, accused, insulted, and discussed as though her dignity were conditional upon the opinion of those above her. Clearing her name does not restore what was taken. Lydia's heart began to pound. "Alistair," she said quietly. He heard, but continued. "My household failed her. I failed her by allowing rank to make accusation appear credible before evidence existed." Mrs. Wren looked suspiciously pleased. The servants stood straighter. "Therefore," the Duke said, "the stolen funds recovered from the Caraway accounts will be returned under Miss Harrow's supervision. Her father's records made that recovery possible. His name will be publicly cleared, and a legal foundation will be created to protect the property of women and dependents from fraudulent guardianship." A murmur moved through the ballroom. Lydia stared at him. "You cannot place that responsibility on me without asking." "No." He came closer. "So I am asking." The room faded around them. "Will you oversee it?" he said. "As an employee? As its director? Under your authority? Under your own?" Lydia searched his face. "And if I refuse? Then I will find another way to repair what can be repaired." "You cannot repair my father." "No." His voice softened. "I can only make certain the lie does not outlive him." Lydia's eyes burned. She had not cried when accused. She had not cried when kidnapped. She had not cried. The gallery burned. But this kindness, precise and without demand, reached a place cruelty had failed to break. "Yes," she said. Applause began among the servants first, then the tenants. Then, cautiously, the guests followed. The sound grew until the same house that had whispered thief now spoke her name with respect. Lydia looked toward Lady Blackmere. Their eyes met. Lady Blackmere had once said men like the Duke always chose their name. She had been right. He had chosen what his name should mean. 6 months later, Lydia stood in the restored West Gallery beneath the portrait of the late Duchess. The fire damage had been repaired, though one blackened beam remained by Lydia's request. "Why keep it?" the Duke asked from behind her. "Because restoration should not pretend nothing burned." "You have become alarmingly philosophical." "I have become well paid." He came to stand beside her. The recovered necklace had been reset and placed permanently on public display with a small plaque describing its role in exposing the fraud. Lydia had refused every suggestion that she wear it. "London writes about you weekly," he said. "London has poor hobbies. 3 newspapers have called you formidable." "Only 3? 2 others used less polite words." "Those are usually more accurate." He smiled. Their friendship had become easier after the scandal, and more difficult in every other way. They worked together daily. They argued over legal language, budgets, appointments, and whether Mrs. Wren's tea could legally be classified as a weapon. He brought Lydia books. She corrected his speeches. He watched her when he believed she did not notice. She noticed. Lydia noticed everything. "I received an offer," she said. His expression changed. "What kind?" "The Royal Commission wishes me to advise on guardianship reform." "In London?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Perhaps a year." He looked toward the window. "You should accept." The words came too quickly. Lydia felt the old wound open, small but sharp. "You sound eager." I am attempting not to make your choice about me. And in doing so, you make your feelings invisible. He turned back. My feelings are not your burden. You do this often. What? Decide what I should be protected from without consulting me. His face tightened. I will not use affection to limit your life. Affection? Silence. The words stood between them at last. Lydia stepped closer. Is that what this is? No. Her heart dropped. He continued. Affection is too small. She stopped breathing. The Duke, who could confront criminals, magistrates, and entire drawing rooms, looked suddenly uncertain. I have loved you badly for years, he said. Quietly enough to call it respect. Carefully enough to call it fairness. Cowardly enough never to ask whether you might choose me. Lydia's eyes filled. Why now? Because you are leaving. That is not a flattering answer. Because I finally understand that silence can also be a form of control. It leaves you to decide without truth. He took one breath. I love you. I do not ask you to remain. I do not ask you to become a duchess, abandon your work, or forgive the failures attached to my name. I ask only that you know. Lydia looked at the blackened beam. Restoration should not pretend nothing burned. Love should not pretend fear had never existed. I am going to London, she said. Pain crossed his face, controlled but real. I know. You will visit. He blinked. If invited. You are invited. Frequently? Do not become demanding. Hope entered his expression with painful caution. And after the year? After the year, you may ask me a question. Which question? A duke should occasionally solve his own mysteries. He laughed. Lydia loved that laugh because it belonged to the man beneath the title, the careful man who had once chosen evidence before reputation, and later learned that love required more than fairness. He reached for her hand, but stopped before touching it. May I? He asked. Lydia placed her hand in his. You are improving. A year later, in the same ballroom where she had been publicly cleared, Lydia Harrow stood before a gathering far smaller and kinder. She wore no family diamonds, no inherited jewels. At her throat hung her father's silver watch on a blue ribbon. The Duke faced her beneath white roses brought from the old chapel garden. Mrs. Wren sat in the front row, openly crying and denying it whenever anyone looked. Celia stood beside Lydia as witness. The recovered necklace remained locked behind glass in the West Gallery, where it belonged. Lydia Harrow, the Duke said, holding a simple gold ring. Will you marry me? She looked around the room. Once an accusation in this house had defined her before anyone asked a question. Now every person waited for her answer, not because a duke had selected her, but because her choice mattered. On 3 conditions, she said. A ripple of laughter moved through the guests. The Duke looked unsurprised. Only 3? The foundation remains independent. Agreed. I continue my work. I would not survive attempting to stop you. And when I tell you that fairness is not enough, I will ask what kindness requires. Lydia smiled. Then yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit without adjustment. Outside, bells rang across Ravenscourt village. The sound passed over the restored gallery, the old chapel, the servants' wing, and every room where silence had once protected cruelty. Years later, Visitors would come to see the famous Ravenscourt diamonds and hear the story of how a poor companion had been accused of stealing them. Most expected a tale about jewels. They discovered instead that the necklace had been the least valuable thing recovered. A father's honor was restored. Stolen fortunes returned. Frightened witnesses found courage. A proud house learned accountability. And a duke who had spent his life believing justice required distance learned that love required standing close enough to share the cost. As for Lydia, she never wore the diamonds. When people asked why, she gave the same answer. They spent too many years belonging to men who mistook possession for worth. Then she would look across the room at her husband, who always heard her even in a crowd, and add, "The most valuable things are those that remain themselves after someone tries to steal their name."